One scorching afternoon, the air trembled with heat as Daniel guided the flock toward a remote grazing patch near an old desert oak. As he approached, something pale glimmered beneath the shade, a sliver of white cloth trembling in the wind. His first thought was that a traveler had dropped a bag, but when he crouched and carefully unfolded the bundle, his heart jolted. A newborn, a baby girl, dust covering her tiny eyelashes, her lips cracking from thirst. And then she cried. A thin, desperate cry that pierced the dead silence of the desert. Daniel spun around, searching for footprints, a trail, any sign of someone nearby. But there was none, only endless dunes stretching into the horizon. Whoever left her had done so deliberately. His hands shook as he lifted the infant. "What am I supposed to do?" he whispered, voice trembling. "I can barely feed myself." But leaving her was unthinkable. So he tucked her close to his chest and rushed back to the village. The first door he knocked on was that of Mara Hill, an elderly widow known for helping whoever needed her. When she saw the baby, she gasped and pulled Daniel inside without a second thought. "Where did you find her?" Mara demanded. Daniel told her everything. She inspected the child and muttered, "She's only a few weeks old. Someone wanted her gone." A heaviness settled in Daniel's chest. "Mara, what do I do? I don't have food for myself. How will I raise a child?" But the old woman looked at him with surprising firmness. "Daniel, listen to me. Sometimes heaven sends us things we never expected. Don't turn your back on a blessing." He didn't feel blessed. He felt terrified. Still, he stayed. Mara warmed goat's milk from her neighbor and fed the baby gently. Daniel watched, silently overwhelmed. "What should we call her?" he finally asked. Mara smiled. "Call her Grace. Because that's what she is. A storm of doubts." By morning, the entire village knew Daniel had returned from the desert with a baby. People whispered as he passed. John Barrett, one of the wealthiest livestock owners, approached him outside the general store with a mocking grin. "So you've taken in a child now? Think the heavens will reward you for it. Boy, you can barely afford boots." Daniel kept his head low. "I'm doing what anyone should do." John scoffed and walked off. Inside, Daniel bought only a loaf of bread and a handful of dates, on credit again. Shame stung him, but when he returned to his shack, Grace greeted him with a soft coo. Mara was rocking her gently. For the first time, Daniel felt something warm inside him. That night, Grace cried uncontrollably. Daniel panicked and ran to Mara's home. She took one look and frowned. "She's sick. Feverish. We need to take her to a doctor in Graymont City." Graymont was a long, rough journey, and expensive. Daniel stared at Grace, tiny and fragile in Mara's arms. "I'll go," he said, though he had no idea how he'd pay for it. Before sunrise, Daniel rode his worn-out donkey across the cold desert wind. By noon he was exhausted, dizzy, and hungry. But he reached Graymont. Dr. Hadarg Lewis, a calm man with snowy hair, examined the baby. "She's fighting a severe infection. The medicine she needs costs 20 silver sigils. Without it, she may not survive 2 days." 20. Daniel barely had one. Holding Grace close, he stepped outside, sat on the curb, and buried his face in his hands. Moments later, a woman in a long blue veil approached with a basket of baked bread. "Sir, are you all right?" Through choked words, Daniel told her everything. She placed a hand over her heart, concerned. "Wait here." She returned with her brother, a tall merchant named Jack Ryland. Jack listened quietly, then nodded. "How much do you need?" Daniel swallowed. 20, but I have no way to repay." Jack pressed the coins into his hand. "Save the child. That's enough repayment." Daniel broke into sobs. He bought the medicine, hurried home, and for days he and Mara took turns nursing Grace. Slowly, miraculously, her color returned. Her eyes brightened. She lived, and Daniel felt himself living again too. Life, however, was still unbearably hard. Daniel's wages barely covered food. Grace grew, needing more than he could provide. One afternoon in the desert, a crow circled noisily above a cluster of rocks. Curious, Daniel approached and found a decayed leather pouch wedged beneath a stone. Inside were 20 gold coins, old but unmistakably valuable. He froze. Had heaven helped him again? He told no one except Mara. She tapped her cane. "Be cautious. People envy what isn't theirs." Daniel used the gold slowly, repairing his shack, buying better food, and new clothes after years of wearing torn ones. Villagers noticed his improved condition and rumors spread like wildfire. Daniel must have found a treasure, one said. Or stole it, another whispered. One stormy night, three masked men broke into his home. They shoved him aside and tore apart his belongings. Where's the gold, shepherd? One growled. Grace woke and screamed. A thief raised his arm toward her. Daniel threw himself in front of her. Touch her, and you'll answer to me. Footsteps approached from outside, villagers investigating the noise. The thieves fled. Shaking with fear, Grace in his arms, Daniel knew things had gone too far. After dawn, he told the village chief, Elder Kim Dawson, everything. Kim ordered guards to watch the area and advised Daniel to hide whatever gold remained. Life settled for a while. Grace grew older, walking, talking, laughing, and she called him Dad without hesitation. Daniel's heart melted every time. But fate wasn't done with him yet. One crisp morning, a tall stranger with a black coat arrived at Daniel's stall. He had recently opened a small dairy shop using his savings. My name is Adrian Cole, the man said softly. I am searching for my niece, a baby girl who vanished more than a year ago. Daniel's pulse spiked. Why come to me? Adrian explained. His sister died shortly after giving birth, leaving her baby with a caretaker who disappeared. Rumors claimed she abandoned the child in the desert. Adrian had only recently returned from abroad and discovered the truth. He produced a folded birth certificate bearing the name Sarah Cole, along with a sketch of a small mark on the child's left shoulder. Daniel swallowed hard. Grace had that same birthmark. He took a long breath. The child you're searching for, she's with me. Adrian's eyes filled with tears when he saw Grace. He knelt before her, trembling. She has her mother's smile. Daniel feared the worst. Are you here to take her? Adrian shook his head. No. She belongs with whoever gave her love. If that's you, then I am grateful to you, not competing with you. Relief washed over Daniel. Adrian became a trusted friend, visiting often and supporting Grace's education. For a time, life felt peaceful. Then another man appeared, a proud, sharp-tongued gentleman named Fletcher Grant, distant relative to Grace's biological family. Fletcher demanded custody. She is part of my bloodline, he snapped. She deserves a life among her own, not with a desert shepherd. Daniel stood tall. I raised her. I saved her. If you think I'll let you take her, you're mistaken. Fletcher smirked. Then we'll let the court decide. And he did. At the courthouse, Judge Samuel Rivers, a wise old man with a steady voice, heard both sides. Fletcher argued that wealth and status mattered. Daniel, hands trembling, spoke of devotion and sacrifice. Then the judge called Grace forward. Child, he said gently, who do you wish to live with? The room went silent. Grace looked at Fletcher's stern face, then at Daniel's weary, loving eyes. She reached for Daniel's hand. I want to stay with my dad. He's the one who held me when no one else did. Tears flowed freely around the courtroom. Judge Rivers raised his gavel. The child remains with Daniel Hale. The village greeted Daniel and Grace with cheers as they returned home. Even those who once doubted him now respected him deeply. Fletcher left in anger, defeated. Grace grew into a compassionate, intelligent young woman. Daniel's small shop prospered. They built a life together, not because of gold or luck, but because of love that never faltered. And sometimes, when the desert wind whispered across the dunes, Daniel remembered the day he found a tiny bundle of life under a lone oak tree, a day that rewrote his entire destiny. Grace had been abandoned by the world, but she had saved him. And that was the greatest miracle of all. Don't forget to subscribe and activate the bell to receive all new stories.